Well, since we got the Lazy Susan out, we might as well do a review on a pistol. The question is which one? Or what exactly? Be right back. Much better. A big shout out to PTS Syndicate for basically allowing us to bring in 3 of these very special pistols out here for me to do a review on. And well, like I said at SHOT Show, hell, I'm gonna need my debit card. Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to another episode of Airsoft Master. And today we're gonna have something special for you, is to review not just one pistol, but 3 by PTS, which is the ZEV licensed pistols that we have out in front. In front of me I have is the 1911 Ed Brown, we have is the OZ-9 Elite, and the Standard. Let's play a game though first. Let's find out which between these two is actually the Elite version. We'll get into that more later on as we actually continue off with the review. But before we start off with the review, don't forget to like and subscribe, and also comment down our YouTube channel in regards to what do you guys think about the pistols or any other issues that you have in regards to concerns. Either way, also if you're looking for other products like these, just check it out airsoftmaster.com. But again, let's go ahead and go off into the review. So let's start off with something for this video in regards to something that's more sentimental value to me, is the 1911. As my first 1911 that I did purchase in store here was the Tokyo Marine Desert Warrior. And I gotta admit, the 45s were always keen to my heart, especially 1911s, because let's be honest, we all know that 45 is God's caliber. But I digress. As we look into the ZEV 1911 Ed Brown, which I have to admit, it does bring back the smile to my face, because this is now more modernized in the aspect of what we've seen for pistols. And everyone's talking about 2011s, but no, we have to start off with the big daddy himself, is the 45 1911. And I have to admit, this pistol is more modernized and at the same time has that wow factor out there, which makes it almost, I would say, daring to compete against the 2011. Either way, the one thing that I do admit that I also like about this pistol is you do have is a threaded adapter out there. So say for example, if you wanted to put a tracer unit on there or any type of suppressors, PTS does help you provide that with using this threaded adapter and the protector with it to put your suppressor out there. But what if you don't want to use it and you just want to be a classic old school 45? Well, it is threaded, and at the best part is it will reveal the signature things that ZEV will use on their pistols is the dimpled type of barrel. Of course, some people don't like it because it looks like that it's been dented by golf balls, but at the same time, you have to admit, like, as soon as you pop out the chamber and empty it, well, you can tell that basically it is a ZEV, which is something that they're really known for doing. And again, it does help pop out the pistol a lot more. And I do have to admit that. Now, in regards to the slide though, on the other hand, I do like it a lot because again, you can see the ZEV design out there, such as you would see on the exaggerated cuts on the front for the top rack, and you still have the same types on the rear rack for the slide in the back. Another thing that is a very benefit to seeing on modernized 1911s or even 2011s is the fact that it comes with suppressor height sights, which only I've seen what Staccato do in regards to the pistols, but the fact that you have it on a ZEV, it's just the perfect way to make it more modernized on a 1911. And the best part to include to the sights is, say for example, you wanted to put an RMR. Well, surprisingly, like the one that we have here, you're able to do that with the RMR mount that's right in front of the actual suppressor sight in the rear, which allows you to put any type of red dots that you have for your airsoft pistol if you do purchase this. But enough of the slide, let's get to the frame. And I do have to admit, I do love me a natural 1911 because it's very slim and there's no finger grooves to help manipulate yourself to doing the natural stance for you to aim with the pistol. So it's good enough that you don't need that, and at the same time, you do have is a texturized grip from it to allow you to help keep a really firm and stable type of platform while aiming with the pistol. Of course, just like a typical 1911 and 2011, Once you rack it, you have your standard ambidextrous safety by raising the actual safety up to prevent it from pulling the trigger. And of course, you have your secondary safety in the back end to help release the hammer. As such. Now, you do have a weaver rail mount underneath to help attach any type of flashlights or lasers if you need be want to putting on this nice type of pistol out there. And I have to admit, who wouldn't with such a modernized 45? But now that we talked about the frame, we talked about the grip, let's go ahead and talk about the magwell and the magazine. So for one thing is on the pistol, you do have a hard government magwell in the back to help you assisting in your reloads. So again, it does make it very easy to help assist you in putting in your next magazine. As for the magazine though, I do like this style as PTS has innovated their new type of magazine known as the SAM, sidearm magazine for the 1911, which is TM compatible to other TM magazines or pistols depending on which one you do like. And surprisingly, I gotta admit, I do like it. It's very modernized with their own manufactured base padding, and at the same time, it's very gas efficient where it reminds you of like the Tokyo Marui magazines that you would normally get on your pistol. Good job, PTS. Now, speaking about Tokyo Marui compatibility on magazines, let's go ahead and talk about Tokyo Marui internals, as this is supposed to be TM spec. So, of course, we're going to see some TM specs parts inside this ZEV 1911. But how do we get to it? For starters, to break down the pistol, you will have a half crescent part of the slide, and all you have to do is just rack it until you reach that to your pin to push out the takedown pin. Go ahead and push it out from the slide. That'll remove out the slide catch. Push forward, and then you're able to access the inside of your internals of your slide on the top, and also easier to help you adjust your hop up right here, as basically going towards the back of the hammer will increase hop up. To simply put it back, all you have to do is just put back the slides back on the rail like a normal 1911 or 2011s. Put your slide catch back in. And you're good to go. Now, in regards of the pistol, I do have to admit this does have a hard recoiling kick. As basically, once I put this back together, why don't we just show you? Mags in, clear. Let's check it out. Oh my God. Again, this does have a very nice recoil and kick all the way. And at the point where I have to admit, you still have that slight slack into it, so when you can actually anticipate for the wall to fire in the next round. And one thing I do like about 1911 is you're expected to know when you hit that wall and then to be ready to fire. As I reach for the slack, there's the slack, here's that wall, there you go. Making it easier for you to prepare yourself for the next round like I stated, and be able to put in those pop-in shots real quick. Again, very impressive. Now for the SAM magazine, it does hold about 24 rounds. But for the ZEV 1911, let's see if it's actually compatible to other magazines. Starting off with what we do have is a Army Armament 1911 round, a standard KJW, and lastly, the Echo 1 DEFCON. So, of course, we'll use the actual SAM as the standard and moving on from our test. So far, so good. But how does it take a Army Armament? Fits in very well. Well, the only issue though is it does tend to pop out real quickly. So, in regards to magazine compatibility, unfortunately, no. But what about the KJW? It's very stiff, doesn't want to go in all the way, so that's also a no. What about DEFCON? Surprisingly, it works. All right, locks in, looks very good. It racks. Let's find out the gas. Oh, wow. So, what we do know about is it does like Echo 1 DEFCON magazines for the 1911. So, hey, that's a big plus. If we run out of the SAMs, hey, you can't go wrong with Echo 1 DEFCONs. So, good job on that one, PTS. Now, testing it for chrono on the ZEV 1911, I've seen on average around being is the 280 to 300 FPS, which is really good for a sidearm to be exactly around in that vicinity of the range. So, again, a really nice pistol. And during the time of this recording, surprisingly, this pistol is $180, while the magazine is 33 bucks. So, I have to admit, for a 1911, this is really, really good. So, I would have to say if you're looking for a 1911, you might want to check this out. But either way, let's move on to the next two pistols and seeing what's going on. And now we're on to these two fascinating pistols. Surprisingly enough, the OZ-9 Elite and Standard Edition, which hopefully we can try to figure out which one is the Elite and which one is the Standard. But starting off with what they have both in common. Mainly the fact that you're going to end up with lightning cuts and serrations in the front and rear to help with top rack and rear rack reloads. Again, very, very nice. And of course, you're going to end up seeing a lot more of the feeling of the cuts in between for more attention to detail to the Elite version to the Standard. Another thing that you'll see that is more common is both of these internals would be TM spec, as they will take any type of TM G series magazines. And of course, you're going to see is you're going to end up with the internals is a 70-degree bucking on both of these and a 603 Type 4 barrel, which is the equivalent length of 97 millimeters. Now, on average, surprisingly, what I do like for both of these is they feel very comfortable and should be very familiar to Glock users, as you'll end up with is the same magazine release with a feel texture as like a Gen 4 Gen 5. And the best part about the OZ-9s is you do have it to be reversible to make it either left-handed or right-handed reloads to press the magazine release. So it is reversible to change that out. And for both of these, you do have is the integrated rail system to help attach like flashlights or accessories right underneath the frame. Now, as per the grip, I do have to admit on both of them, they feel very, very comfortable. And again, they do have texturized to help keep it stable. The only drawback is you do have is the one finger groove manipulation to help adjust it. But again, it's not really as noticeable, and you still have a very good angle that's very steep on these OZ-9s, where it's not as noticeable to feel even on your wrist for adjustment like some Glocks do. I will have to give credit to, going back to the slide, is the fact that you have a widened rear sight in the back end of both of the OZ-9s to help give that faster target acquisitions alongside with the fiber optic in the front when it comes to finding your target real quick, as aiming down will be easier than ever. But of course, then PTS wouldn't have to make it more than the icing on the cake by having the RMR mount, which would make it more modernized for both the Standard and the Elite version. So now that we already talked about the slide and we talked about basically the frame, let's talk about the magazine that's also important. When you purchase a OZ-9, either Elite or Standard, you're going to end up with a SAM magazine for the GS for the OZ-9 Elite and Standard, which holds about the same equivalent as a Tokyo-Marui Glock magazine, about 25 rounds. But I do like the OZ-9s and GS SAM magazines, as they do have this really cool design shock padding underneath for the base pads for both of them. And they're very, very sleek and rubberized, so it does help out in assisting by grabbing it and actually doing their next reload. Speaking about reloads, it does have its own integrated magwell inside to help assisting you right off the bat from the OZ-9 lower frame. So it makes it very simple to actually reload with no problem, with a breeze. So now, have you actually figured out which one is the OZ-9 Elite? If you thought this was this one, congratulations, you're wrong. Surprisingly, it's this one. And we'll basically get into why it's a little bit more different, and also in comparison to price-wise, but internal-wise, why we see it more cost-heavy, which we'll talk about later on. Starting off with the benefits on the OZ-9, you do have is an adjustable trigger. And to access that, let's go ahead and break down the actual slide and get into more in the internals of the frame. To get to it, all you have to do is just push down the slides down here, the takedown switch, rack it forward, push it forward, and then basically be able to go into the lower frame. So now that we got to the frame, the one thing that does make it more beneficial in comparison to the standard is you do have is a CNC hammered system. And I do have to admit, you can tell this guy is really, really bulky. So that means that it's very reliable into its system. As well, you do have is a adjustable trigger in the back end inside the housing to help either reduce the slack that's on the back end of the trigger pull. So say for example you don't, all you have to do is just raise or lower the grub screw right underneath where the trigger is at. So again, you do pay for a little bit of the extra more internals, which is somewhat cheaper, I would say, than just building your own type of Glock build. Now, speaking of which about CNC, other than the hammer housing itself with the actual hammer, there is another thing that's also CNC by the 6000 aluminum is the slide. Now, you're not expecting too much in comparison, but you have to admit that you can feel it in detail. For me, it's a lot lighter to comparison to the standard version. So you will notice that a lot more right off the bat in comparison. As well to that, again, it's very, very smooth. And when it comes to more in depth of the detail from the barrel, I will have to give credit as the barrel is made by a carburizing steel metal alloy. So it does have that more realistic feature as if you're holding the real OZ-9. And again, I do like this style with the dimpled barrel system out here and the standard of having the lightning cuts and ports in here with the lacerations to help out when it comes to reloading or racking your pistol. Again, a very nice build all together in regards of the OZ-9 Elite, alongside with having the SAM magazine with it. Now, in comparison to the OZ-9 Elite and the standard is, unfortunately, you're not able to adjust the trigger pull, but again, you can practice with this as well. Now, one benefit that both of these do have is how to adjust your hop-up. You don't have to break the rifle down anymore. As one thing is nice is once you actually release the slide catch to lock it forward, you're able to adjust the hop-up in the back end of the hop-up chamber inside to help adjust whatever you would need for whatever weight BB, just by having the lock back and actually adjust it by hand, or even a little tiny pick to get into the back of it. Again, it's really good innovation from PTS, instead of how back in the day for the Tokimuris where you would have to open the slide, adjust it, put it back together, and then hopefully it's shot straight. Now that we already talked about internals and basically magazines, let's go ahead and talk about the most important thing is magazine compatibility. We'll start off with the actual PTS SAM magazine for the OZ-9. It does lock back as a standard, and of course, the recoil is still there. Now I do have his two contenders because unfortunately I did forget my Tokimurui Glock magazines, but I do have here is the Red Wolf EXA for the agency slides. Yes, it's pretty good so that it's recoil, and I did test this earlier beforehand as it does feed its BBs. The same thing can be said about this guy, which is surprisingly an Elite Force Glock 17 Gen 4 and Gen 5 magazines. It cycles through and everything is good, but unfortunately the only drawback is the Elite Force 1 does not lock back. And now for the OZ-9 Standard. And last but not least, the OZ-9 Elite. Now, let's go ahead and take this to regards of the chrono. Now, when we did test both of these pistols, we did notice on average we're looking around is the 310 to around the 290 FPS for both these, which is still pretty good as well for a really good sidearm. Now for the last thing in regards of comparisons for the two of the OZ-9s. Now for the standard, if you do want to purchase an OZ-9 standard, it does come in around during the time of recording is the $220 market price. But if you do want the elite version for that craftsmanship on the CNC, for the slide, the good internal hammers, the adjustable trigger, and of course the more attention to detail in fine tuning, the pistol comes in at a whopping cost of $600. Yes, I understand that's very steep, but you pay for that really fine craftsmanship. It's like you got the difference between basically going to a, shall we say, like normal Chili's diner, and then you have is the fine dining type of experience at Club 33 in Disneyland. You get a different type of aspects, but at the same time, they both help you out in whatever you need as a sidearm. In conclusion to the Ed Brown 1911, the OZ-9 Standard and the OZ-9 Elite, I have to give credit to all of these as these are really good new innovations to 2024. Bringing back the old school but more modernized, having a new type of setup with the ZEV pistols of the OZ-9s for the Elite and the Standard. At the same time, they give you each different type of experiences to whatever you need for your preference at playing in the airsoft field. If you like that classic style for the old school way, to basically something as more simple in terms, and then you get the fine dining bouginess from the OZ-9 Elite. In my personal opinion, I do like all of them in their each aspect way. The 1911 is a classic build, and it's a very classic build with a modernized style twist with suppressor sights, the new type of style that's going into it of this aggressive race style pistol. The same thing can be said about the OZ-9. Again, a very familiar P80 type of lower frames of the Glock style feels. And again, giving that same type of style you'll see on the ZEVs. And the same thing could be said about the OZ-9 Elite. CNC hammers, the actual adjustment of the trigger pull. Again, a CNC super lightweight pistol. Now, they all have their own type of aspects, which I have to admit, which you have your own aspects on the pistol. So again, what do you guys like about these pistols? Comment down below. What do you guys think about it? And if you're trying to buy these type of pistols, expect them to be on the website for airsoftmaster.com. As for me and Mike from this episode and this review, this is the end of the episode. I'll see you guys next time. Now I got to figure out basically which one I got to buy. I'll just go get my debit card.
This video is brought to you by Airsoft Master.